Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark.
All right, everyone. Welcome into another episode of the Financially Free Investor podcast. I have an awesome guest. He's one of my mentors. He's one that really got me into investing in real estate, Mr. Doug Larson.
Hey, how you doing, Jordy?
Dude, I'm excited for this. Doug, I kind of know a little bit of your story and behind the scenes, and we've spent hours and hours talking over the last decade, maybe even longer. Why don't you just kind of tell people briefly, maybe the 10-minute version of the last 30-ish years of your life and career? And
like you said, we've been friends for 10 years, probably more. And in listening to some of your other podcasts, I was trying to think of what I could maybe share with your audience. I would imagine I've got a YouTube channel now, and I've been really surprised. Most of my audience is between 18 and 28. And I've been really surprised about that. I thought millennials and Gen Zers are supposed to be just complete lazy bums, just sitting in their parents' basement playing video games. What's up with that? But with keeping a younger audience in mind, let me just share. First of all, I've kind of lived my life a little bit backwards. I'm in my 50s now, and finally really getting going with the family. Most guys I know that are my age, man, they're grandpas. They got grandkids. And I still have a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? I think you know a little about 7-year-olds.
Yep.
7-year-old girls.
Yeah.
So my oldest is 16, and I got another boy that's 12. And they keep us pretty busy. But in my younger years, I was shaped by a couple probably pretty big events that turned me onto a very different path than probably most people do or hear about. I was about 12 years old. I don't know if you know this story. I was about 12 years old when my dad went to work for a drug dealer. Now, if you knew my dad, he's passed away now, but if you knew my dad and my mom, you would go, what? There is no way that is even possible. But my dad was a dentist, and he didn't have his own practice at the time. It was probably late 70s, early 80s, and he went to work for another dentist who was very successful, very charismatic, charming, and his name was Dr. Landis. He drove a different Porsche for every day of the week, and he lived a little over the top, kind of flamboyant, but very gregarious, real kind of charming guy. Well, my dad agreed to buy his practice after working for him for about a year, and it turned out that it wasn't real money he made from the dental practice. It was drug money. He was actually cooking meth in a warehouse and in his own house in the basement. And he eventually got investigated by the DEA and went to jail for 7 years. His wife got 4 years. But the spillover onto my dad was the practice that he bought from this guy, mortgaged our house, right? And bought this practice. It wasn't a real dental practice. It was really just a front to launder drug money. The guy had 3 different offices. And so we lost everything, really. Now, I didn't know all the details about it back then, but it was a real formative point for me because, we went from being homeowners and, doing pretty well to literally being, renters from then on, my family. My dad, probably within 2 to 3 years from that, had a series of small strokes, and they're called TIAs, transitory ischemic attacks, and he was just never the same, emotionally and physically, and he just declined over the years. He died at 65. But that was a real formative thing for me. You gotta trust but verify, right? What other people say and do, and make sure that you know what you're really getting into before you jump in with both feet. I grew up in Southern California, San Diego, and always wanted to, just surf and be a bum. But I also realized that being poor was not very fun. I went to school in Hawaii, and absolutely loved it over there. I lived on the North Shore of Oahu, and surfing, playing, some studying, but I remember being I worked at the Polynesian Cultural Center. No, I'm not Polynesian. I'm as white as they come. But I remember seeing lots of old people, and they're retired, they're shuffling around, they got canes, and when you talk to them, they're always like, oh, I love Hawaii, this is a beautiful place, I wish I could have come here earlier. It's our first trip, and we just love it. And, they're just old. They can't do anything. They can't surf, hike, bike, scuba dive. They're just, tottering around. And you just think, oh, man, I do not want to end up, 70, 80 years old and never having lived or anything. And so I had made some mental notes. I don't want to be poor, but I also don't want to have life adventure. So I've kind of, not like I had a great master plan, but I always just kind of had this underlying drive that I wasn't going to just go to school, get a job, work for the man, or even this FIRE movement that's really big right now, financial independence, retire early. Most of those people they brag that, oh man, me and my wife, my girlfriend, we're just eating cat food and ramen, and one day we're gonna have this nest egg and be able to retire. And it's like, you can do that, but there's a lot of living to do, and it's much more important, I think, to have just great relationships and do the things that you would want to do in retirement. Not you don't have to take cruises around the world all the time, but find some hobbies and things that you can do over a lifetime. But start them now. To build those relationships now. Don't put things off, the important things, the relationships and those kind of things off until you're 70 years old. And then if you have put those things off, you won't have a hobby later. You can't start something new. It's hard to teach an old dog, a real old dog, new tricks. So anyway, that was kind of my philosophy. And again, I wouldn't have even been able to put that in words. I could have just told you at age 20, 25, age 30 even, that there were things that I didn't want to have happen in my life. So as I kind of put things together, an education and things, and then a job and things like that, I tried to center it around lifestyle and experience more than anything else. So when I finally did get a job, I moved to Hawaii again and lived on Oahu for a little while, and then back to Maui, where I visited quite a bit. And it was great. I just absolutely loved it. Any day you're not working, you're in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I lived on Maui for 5 years. When I was in college, I'd heard about real estate investing through an TV infomercial. Carlton Sheets, no money down. And then I went online and found out about his courses, and it was, 3 easy payments of $89.95 or whatever it was back then. And you could buy, believe it or not, cassette tapes of his whole course. And I listened to it, but I was still in college. I wasn't really in a position to do anything with it, but it just intrigued me. The thing that seemed crazy was he was somewhere in the South doing this, and, it was buying real estate, buying rental houses for, $40,000, $50,000. I'm like, well, where does that happen? I'm from San Diego. And if you add a zero, maybe. But I just thought, that's something that I could probably do. So I bought my first house in Southern California when I was just barely out of college. And then when I moved back to Hawaii, I thought, I got to do this. I got to jump in here. And everybody said, oh, it's too expensive. You can't buy here. Nobody can afford housing here. And I thought, there's got to be a way. And so that's when I discovered house hacking, before it was even a term. Mm-hmm. But, you buy a house and you rent out a part of the house to other people. And I had several functional duplexes and triplexes on Maui that just totally worked. I mean, they paid for most of my bills, and I was able to afford, 2 or 3 properties at a time. I bought 5 total properties when I was living on Maui, when everybody around me said, nobody can buy houses here. But, you just make it work.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I got into real estate. And by the time I left Maui in 2004 and found and married Lisa, my wife, I left my day job behind, and I haven't had a day job in, over 18 years.
Yeah. Yeah, which is, I just want to say real quick and give you a plug, that's why you named your YouTube channel Retire Early and Retire Often.
Retire early and often.
And often, yeah. So, yeah, no, that's awesome. So, real quick, I want to talk about those deals because I still hear it today. Like you said, Utah's pretty expensive. I've got some friends in Arizona, and they kind of bemoan the same thing, like, oh, it's so expensive here. But how did you find, what did you look for? House hacking, obviously you split up some portion of the house in some way and lived in one half and rented the other out. So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, Hawaii and certainly California and other expensive places, there's a lot of homes that are kind of set up that way. Even in Utah, there's a lot of homes that are set up with, a mother-in-law basement apartment or a detached ADU, accessory dwelling unit, or, some kind of thing. Now, if you were going to go out today and try to find those, you can put in the search term, mother-in-law, or ADU, or apartment, right, when you're looking at houses. And it's amazing what you can find. There's a lot of things out there. Nobody will ever say, this is a functional duplex, please buy me.
Yeah.
But we've been friends for a long time, and we both kind of done this. Whether you're living in it or you're looking at something that has some flexibility in the floor plan. I know you talked to me about something that you purchased recently. Did you close on that deal that has a basement entrance? That brand new house?
No.
Haven't closed yet?
I didn't close on it because it wasn't what I was told it was.
Oh, okay. So yeah, and that's awesome. That you need to know that you've got a flexibility. You always got your plan A, plan B, plan C, and it's crucial to always have that. Anyway, but you can find things that will function as a duplex, and it usually does not violate any codes or ordinances in the area, so long as you do it right. Mm-hmm. I know in Hawaii, they had some funny laws on the books that said that you could not have more than one stove, one range in a house. But I tell you what, there's a lot of homes out there that have a whole bunch of hot plates and toaster ovens and microwaves, right? Yeah, wink, wink. You know, they're functional fourplexes in a lot of these houses. You know, if you've got a house, even now, in Hawaii or Southern California or here in the Salt Lake area, and it's got 4 bedrooms, I'm telling you what, as a landlord, you have to be very specific about who your tenants are, because you could have 3 or 4 families in there and not even know it. And people need that. They need housing, and they need something that's affordable. Recently, I had a couple of houses that went vacant, and I had some folks come, and the first question was, so how many people can live here? It can be a big red flag, but if you know that going in, I'd rather have people honest with me than surprise me later. So I'm pretty clear on what my expectations are. And if it's going to be 2 families or 3 families, I need to know exactly who is in my property and run the proper background checks. But you asked, how do you find those kinds of things? Yeah, you just find, maybe a bigger house or a townhome than you were looking for. I've got one nephew right now who's looking at doing some house hacking, and I've been trying to coach him. I said, if you can find a townhome that's at least 3 bedrooms and it's got 2.5 bathrooms, that can be a golden opportunity. You live in 1 bedroom, you rent out the other 2, and make sure that everybody's got, someplace to use a bathroom and, get ready in the mornings. And you can have somebody else paying your property off for you. It's just gold. So many opportunities, no matter where you live. A funny story, I was buying a TV for an ADU that I've got in Southern California just a couple months ago. And I wanted a nice flat screen. I just didn't want to pay full price, I'll be honest. I was on Facebook Marketplace, and I found somebody who was selling one, within a mile of this little casita that I've got. And I thought, oh, that's perfect. A couple $100 for this big, 60-inch screen TV. That's going to be cool. Went, talked to the guy, bought his TV, and he was moving out of this little apartment. And it was an ordinary house, maybe half a mile from the beach. And I'm like, interesting to find you here way in the back. This house must be split up into a couple different units. Oh, yeah, 5 different people live here, he said. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I said, if you don't mind me asking, what was the rent? Because he was moving out. And he goes, it was $2,000 a month. He had a bedroom in this house. $2,000. And so you wonder, how do people make it work as landlords in, sunny San Diego? Well, that's how. You buy a 4-bedroom house, you chop it up into a fourplex. And, he did not have a proper kitchen. It was literally just, a hot plate and a little fridge and a microwave, and $2,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he probably paid that because he was a couple blocks from the beach.
Yeah. And what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Right? You go to any of the apartment buildings down there, and you've got, studio apartments that are, certainly $1,850. But then by the time you pay the other fees that they always tack on, they call it a media fee or whatever kind of fee, you're easily over $2,000 a month, for even studios. So, that's how they can make it work. So, you can buy a house for, $1 million, 1.2, and it's an ordinary looking house in Southern California, nothing special at all. But you chop it up into 4 and you rent it out.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking, short-term rental or anything like that can tick off the neighbors. You just, get, some different tenants in there, and suddenly it's a cash cow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, cool. Let's jump back to your story real quick. You're in Maui for a few years. You got married to Lisa, but you don't own those properties in Maui anymore.
No.
So what happened? This was like 2004, right?
2004, I moved to Utah because I had met Lisa on a cruise ship. Believe it or not.
Yep.
But I think a little something about meeting girls on cruise ships, right?
That's where I met Courtney. Yeah.
So it was a singles cruise with like-minded individuals and. A similar religious background to mine, and anyway, we met and dated long distance for a little while, but I just decided that maybe coming to Utah, where I did have some family. My mom had moved here, and I had a brother who lived here, and I just thought, we can give that a try for a while. So it just made sense, and I came here. I was able to quit the day job and do that. I still had one house on Maui that I kept in a lease option with some pretty good tenants for another year, and sold that one in 2005. You always look back, and I know one of the questions you'll ask later is, what would you tell people, that you might do differently? And, if there was a way to have kept more of my properties long-term, just, I love buy and hold, and I've, kept some properties for, 5, 10 years. But if I would have kept some of those from 20 years ago, oh, man, they'd be paid off, and I'd still have a house in Maui. But sold that one in 2005, and then devoted all of my efforts to Utah. When I arrived here and really started looking around, it was just ripe for the pickings, right? There was still a lot of inventory. It was 2004. I had some cash from the sales in Maui. And I just thought, what makes sense to me? And something about the valley in Utah is a little different. And if you're looking at flipping in Salt Lake and Utah County, it's kind of difficult because everybody and their uncle has handyman skills. Everybody wants to buy a fixer-upper, and they're watching HGTV, and one thinks she's a designer, and it just seemed really hard to do flipping the way that I understood it, right? On Maui in Southern California, there's this this buyer that comes in, and all they want is a second home, or they want something that's totally fixed up. They're not going to swing a hammer on the weekends, right?
Yeah.
These guys are professionals, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're computer programmers. They're not handymen, they're not weekend warriors, and they just want something that's turnkey. And so you, as a flipper, could get paid for that. Most of my flips were kind of live-in flips that I lived in and then sold to somebody else, but up to that point. So I came to Utah and I was like, wow, it just doesn't make sense. I'm looking at, what things are selling for that are just pieces of junk, and what they're selling for all fixed up. And I don't know how I can do that. But I discovered a cute little town called Park City. And I thought, that makes sense. So the first 10 deals I did were all in Park City. They were homes, they were townhomes, they were condos. But again, you've got that second home buyer. Most of the people that are coming to Park City, it's a second home.
Yeah.
It's a vacation property. And they want turnkey. And so you can be paid to be that person that buys and fixes it up and flips it to that person that's just like, hey, I want a beautiful property that I can come and visit, and I don't want, repairs. So that was like the next 10 deals. And that made my wife so nervous, right?
Yeah.
Because, I'm looking at these homes, and, they were like 3, 4, 5, even $600,000 purchase price. And, her home that she lived in, that we moved into together, brand new, she had paid, I think it was $90,000, right?
In Sandy?
In Sandy.
Yeah.
And she was like, $500,000, $500,000, are you crazy? I'm like, trust me, this is cheap compared to where I come from. She says, yes, but this isn't, California or Hawaii. And I'm like, it's the same buyer. It's the same buyer. Trust me on this. And it worked out awesome all the way up until 2007 summer. And I still had 3 properties. And it was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be holding the bag on these if I'm not really careful. So, and I actually had about 5 or 6, but I had been able to sell those leading up to the summer of 2007. But 2007 in the summer, I had some that were not selling. And it was the same feeling that we've got in the market right now, where there wasn't a ton of inventory yet, but everything was slowing down. You could see it. You could see that the buyers just weren't there, and they were beginning to be more picky. And it was like, uh-oh. So I liquidated pretty fast some properties. I only lost money on 2. I lost money on 2 of those 3. But thankfully, the money that I'd made, I had, several $100,000 sitting in cash after liquidating almost everything. And I just took a break for 2 years. 2008 and 2009, I did not buy a single thing. I spent a lot more time with my family, and I did make some offers, but nothing was accepted. I just was patient and waited. And then in 2010, when I really could start to see that there were bargains to be had, I really started buying hand over fist. And I started with cash, buying, beat-up houses down here in the valley. I also started buying some land, both down in the valley and up in Park City, where I could just see fire sales going on, just absolute fire sales, where, a piece of property, all vacant land, all improved in approved subdivisions with, all the sewer and gutter and, utilities in lots were $20,000. And these would have been $120,000, $150,000 just 2 years earlier. And it's like, those are, I don't know how you can't make money just buying and holding those for a little while.
Yeah.
All the improvements are done. You can't buy the land and do the improvements for that. And so I probably bought a total of about 3 dozen lots, some from banks, some from individuals, some from builders who were, just fire sailing them to liquidate and have some cash. But it was just a golden opportunity if you had some cash, because you couldn't get loans, certainly not on land.
Yeah.
If you had a plan and you could take it to a bank and say, I'm going to build a home, you could still get, a bridge loan, that construction financing. You're very aware of that kind of financing because you work in that space.
Yep.
But you just could not get a loan on a vacant piece of property. And so if you could buy 2, 3, 4 at a time, man, it was just easy pickings. And so then I would sell them 1 or 2 at a time to local small builders who were nimble. And, people still want housing. They still want to build.
Yep.
It just needs to be the right price to get people off the bench.
Yep.
People, were just waiting patiently in 2010, 11, 12. And so if you had a lot that I picked up for literally, Jordy, up behind, Cabela's and that whole area, Silicon Slopes,
yeah.
I purchased 3 lots from a credit union for $105,000 for 3.
Yeah.
And I picked up another 2 for under $20,000 each.
Yeah.
And then I had relationships with some builders, and they would agree to buy those from me, at closing when everything needed to happen, for about double what I paid or triple what I paid. And so I made money, they got paid, and they didn't have to come out of pocket as the builder, right? They could just kind of tie it up, and it was just a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and I like to say that I love dirt because dirt is clean and easy. You're not fixing up stinky houses and stuff. And it was easy. But that opportunity came and went, and pretty soon there were no more just basement bargain prices on things like that. Mm-hmm. And I had to go kind of back to work again, doing some flips and buying, holding things and fixing up some things. I've never had a single employee.
Yeah.
I've only used subcontractors, and so I really try to keep my business streamlined. The big players would definitely call me mom and pop, and I'm not offended by that. I know my wife does most of the books, and we've got an accountant, a really good accountant. But we just like to keep it small, and it's not scalable in the way that some people would like to see a business, but it's just simple and easy. I saw so many people try to take advantage of expanding market share during the 2003, 4, 5, 6 time frame, and they really got burned. They went out of business. They went bankrupt. I had several family members that tried to scale in their own businesses, and they went bankrupt. And I just thought, what? I'm just going to always keep it manageable, so that I'm just not hanging my neck too far out there. So
yeah,
that's kind of been the model. And we didn't grow huge, but basically over the space of 18 years living in Utah, we were able to build a pretty nice nest egg. I always dreamed that if I could have maybe a net worth around $2 million and, 8 or 10, rental properties paid for free and clear, $10,000 a month or so spendable income, that, I'd just be set. And really, about a year and a half ago, we about doubled that, milestone. And then at some point, you just kind of have to ask yourself, okay, how much is enough? And so, me, I'm kind of older and grumpier now, and it's got to be something, really that enhances my lifestyle to kind of get me off the bench. I'm restless. I can't just sit around and do nothing.
Yep.
But I also am not just out there just hustling like, some of the younger guys that are just like, yeah, I'll buy it. Yeah. That's just not me.
Yeah. Well, I think the cool thing in just hearing your story kind of all together, because I've known most of this, but just seeing the highlight, and, obviously it's just your story. You've had highs and lows throughout all of that, 2008, when you were fire selling properties just to get out from under them, and they were neg-am loans, and, we've talked about all of that, but just, you've really done a good job, and hopefully your kids can listen to this and see it. Maybe when they're a little bit more mature and ready to receive the lesson. But
I'm not sure if my children have ears.
Well, not for you, but for somebody else. Because I was certainly that way. But you've done a great job at designing your life so that you've been able to go down. In fact, when we first kind of really got to know each other. You hired me as slave labor to flip a house in San Diego. It was in Vista. Yeah. And your whole sales pitch was, hey, why don't you come learn how to surf and do a little bit of work? And I realized it was a lot of work and a little bit of surf. But we had a great time. And, we slept in that house, and I've just learned so much from you. And the cool thing is, you don't have to have a portfolio that somebody else has. You've kind of jumped around, obviously, geography, but then in kind of niches, doing high end, then some wholesaling and some just buy and hold. But you've done a good job at kind of pivoting with the market and with life turning and changing, and the whole time keeping in mind like your lifestyle freedom, your desire to not be quote unquote a wheel in the cog in somebody else's big corporate business, and that's afforded you, I think, a lot of different experiences that most America doesn't have because they're so stuck in the working 9 to 5, for 40 years to maybe squeak out, $500,000 in an IRA or something that, really doesn't provide them with enough income to live comfortably. But you guys have a portfolio that's pretty resilient, even though, we're in the midst of what could be 2007 all over again. I think, and we can touch a little bit on this, but I think it's got different factors, right? We've definitely seen prices drop. But the loans that people have gotten for the last few years leading up to, we'll call it 2022, you really had to qualify. Even in 2021 and 2020, the interest rates were just ultra low. And most people, have a ton of equity that could be disappearing. But they've got low interest rates, which is, I think that's going to be the hard part in seeing just this massive wave of foreclosures. And I think there's definitely going to be opportunities. But I don't know that we're going to see, lots at 70% off of what they were, houses at 70% off, just because of the inventory problem, not to mention who knows how many immigrants legal or non-legal or whatever have come in that are unaccounted for that need housing. Like everybody
it represents demand.
Yeah. So I don't know that we're I think we're in a different perfect storm versus the last perfect storm, but I think it's going to be very similar in the fact that a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. If you're not financially prepared, like it can cause bankruptcies. We're kind of already seeing it with lenders tightening up and just everything kind of tightening up. Like if you don't have a cash position to float through some things and you're very leveraged, it could be disastrous. But
well, you talked about the pivot, and I've done everything, except for not commercial or large multi. I mean, you got more experience in that than I do, and I haven't really done short-term rentals. But house hacking, vacant land, and buy and hold, and flipping, wholesaling, money lending, investing with IRA, 1031 exchanges, seller financing with sub 2 lease options, note creation. I've done all these things as I needed to pivot because, as you mentioned, the market is shifting. It's every time is different. Of course, it's different. Every crash is always different.
Yep.
But you have to deal with the market you have, not the one that you want. And the people who are able to pivot, just like you are doing in your business, the people who are able to pivot and adjust to what we have right now, maybe do some of these options. That property that you recently helped me sell, and Murray, your brother and partner, with a note, a seller financing. That was not my first goal with that property. But, we pivoted, made it work. It's a moneymaker. If you're able to pivot with what you're being given, you will be successful. So it's just a matter of looking for opportunity and then saying, okay, so with what we have, what can we do?
Yeah. And I think that's just gold right there. Like people should rewind and listen to that because that's played out in your life as evidenced by your story, right? But it also is playing out today. Like I've had a few conversations in the last few weeks with people where they're like, no, I'm going to wait for prices to drop further. And my conversation with them is essentially, well, how do you know prices are going to keep dropping further? Because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean,
we really don't.
For all we know, we could be, tomorrow's the start of World War III or something crazy, right? Like some balloon flies over.
That could never happen.
You just never know.
UFOs could never happen.
But now is a way less dangerous time to invest than a year ago, because we know where the peak was, and we knew that 6 months ago because we just base prices off of historical data, right? And that's when really the prices started shifting when interest rates doubled in 90 days. That's when we started seeing a drastic pullback with buyers. That's when we started seeing all of this. So really now is the best time to get in. We may not be at the bottom, but you don't know how long the window is going to be open for opportunities where sellers are willing to, negotiate. And right now we're in a buyer's market. Even though inventory is still low, I think we're in a buyer's market. And so
it's a buyer's market because the sellers who really want to and need to sell have been, hit upside the head just a little bit. And so there are some opportunities. Yeah, people who are waiting for the whole market to crash, I think are going to be disappointed. But are there going to be some, opportunities here and there that you can pick off under the radar? Absolutely. Little outliers that, somebody was just really motivated, or a foreclosure here and there. It's not going to be mass foreclosures, I don't think either. But are there going to be some distressed properties here and there? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just going around and looking for those deals. I wouldn't even call it needle in a haystack because I don't think it's that rare. It's just you have to have your eyes open and be continually underwriting deals.
Yeah. Do you think someone can do it when they're working a full-time job?
Absolutely. I did. You did. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's something about people who get stuff done that they're just able to always do one more thing, right? If you need something done, ask somebody who's busy because they just find a way. It's the people who are, always pessimistic, right? Always negative nillies. They never seem to get anything done. They might even have a YouTube channel that's all about how the world is ending and things are terrible and you just gotta wait. But those are not the people who are buying and holding real estate and getting rich long term.
That's right.
They're only as good as their next, crazy, on fire, the world is crashing video that's going to get them eyeballs and maybe a couple bucks off of YouTube, right? But it's not a passive long-term income stream. The people who are really the movers and shakers are the people who are, their underlying base case is always a level of optimism.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a new day and I can do things. And maybe I had a difficult time now, or maybe I placed some bets that didn't work out. But you know what? Tomorrow's a new day, and there's going to be something good.
Yeah. So real quick, we got a few minutes left. What's your view on debt?
When I was younger, it was like maximize the debt. Your equity and your dollar bills, they are employees. And if they're not working for you, then fire them. No, find something for them to do, right?
Yep.
Your time is kind of like that as well, and there's great ways to leverage that. Now, when I was younger, I took more risks. I got 3 kids and responsibilities and things, and a wife who isn't quite as into risk as I am, and so I love having paid off houses that just cash flow awesome. Right, most of my properties are paid off. All but 2 of my rentals are paid off, and it's just nice to have that cash flow. I'm looking at buying some other things and tapping into some of that equity, but again, it's all got to make sense. I like debt so long as you can make more with that money than you're paying on the money.
Yeah. So is there a point at time, and I ask this somewhat selfishly because I'll kind of set it up with my situation, but is there a point in time where you start looking at something and go, okay, I'm going to choose to pay this property off versus keeping the debt on it, or taking that money and putting it somewhere else?
The only point in time that I would see is it's not so much to do with the time itself, it's just what are the other opportunities. So, and it's really all about that. I know you live your life the same way, right?
Yeah.
You see an opportunity, and instead of going, oh, that's a great opportunity for somebody, you're like, that is a great opportunity. How can I make that work?
Yep.
And then you go out and you find the money or the partners, or when you say that most of your deals that you've done are because of networking and partnering and finding syndicating, finding other people when you were like, you know what, I don't know if I can take this down, but I know other people who would really like to do this with me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of an interesting journey on my part. We've done a little bit of everything, but I've had opportunities come to me where we've had people come to us and say, hey, we don't want to invest. We see what you're doing. We want to, we don't want to do any work, but we have some capital.
Have some capital.
And, that I was never the guy that was like, oh, I'm going to go raise, $1 billion and 10x. And that was never really me. But when I had people who I know, like, and trust, and they know, like, and trust me, and they came to me and said, would you consider, taking our money or partnering with us and doing this deal? For a little while, I said no, just because I was, not confident in my abilities, and I didn't want to take anyone else's money. Like, I'll play with my own, but I don't want to lose somebody else's money. So, but in the same sense, I had another friend of mine who has become a mentor. He said, you're the person that some of these guys or friends need because you're honest, you're trustworthy, you know what you're doing, and you know how to take something and deal with it and pivot in the real estate space where, there's some people who have no clue and they're out raising money. So would you rather your friend place your money with you because you know how to do everything, you know what you're doing, or take that bet with some other random person, right?
I love that phrase. You've probably heard it. It's easier to make friends than money, but it's easier to make money with friends.
Yeah.
And how many times have we, partnered on some things, whether it was the money side or, collaborating, lots of collaborating ideas, and it's just worked out. I don't do that with just anybody.
Yeah.
There's family members that I won't do that with for good reason. But Jordy Clark, he's good for it.
Yeah. And that just gets down to, I think the interesting part, which, the money really, at the end of your life, you're not going to wish you had an extra 0 at your bank account or 2 zeros. But you're going to look back and go, I had some pretty good relationships and knowledge and time. And, I think that's the important thing. And everything else we do is just fun and it's a byproduct of whatever. But, I think you nailed it. The most important thing is relationships and, just having a good quality life, because we can't take the money with us when we go. Our kids are probably going to blow it all when we go. So, why not enjoy it and, definitely leave something. The Bible says a wise man leaves income for his children's children or something. I'm totally butchering the scripture, but
must be an Old Testament quote.
Yeah, it is an Old Testament quote.
Proverbs or one of those.
Yeah, but it just goes you should set generationally up, but in the same sense, if you work hard, you should enjoy it as well, and just be wise, a wise steward of what you have. I think.
Absolutely, I know you're part of that Go Abundance. I'm not. A lot of your great guests have been part of that, and they've got that bigger mindset of don't just do this for yourself and set yourself up. This is bigger than you, and I think that's great to have that mindset. Your children, your children's children, maybe. You don't want to spoil your kids, but certainly.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up. One, because our time is running out, and 2, because I'm hungry and want to take you to lunch. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's just starting out on their journey? Maybe they just bought their first property, or they're wanting to design their life a little bit more than just working in a cubicle for 40 years of their life.
I would say that remembering that your time is one of your most important assets. And that you don't have to be one of those day planner kind of people with the little apps that are always dinging you and too much screen time and all that kind of stuff. You just have to ask yourself, each and every day. You and I both know a great speaker, Dallin H. Oaks. He gave a great speech a while back, a great talk that was good, better, best. And everything that you spend your time on, can be bad, or it can be good, or maybe better, or maybe even best. And if you're constantly just asking yourself, is this the best use of my time, or even a really good use of my time? There's my daughter. She's 7. She wants to draw color princess coloring books, right? Mm-hmm. And she'd be happy if I could just spend all afternoon doing that. Well, can I do some of that and also have a podcast in my ear? Right? Mm-hmm. Can I multitask without taking time away from things? Don't try a podcast in your ear when you're having a conversation with your wife. Bad idea. But, always be aware of your time. And is it the best use? And, can you be learning? Can you be growing? Can you be networking? Can you be partnering with people that are just constantly pushing you and helping you to the next level? You are the poster child for that. You're always stretching yourself. In my YouTube channel, I'd love if people would come and find me there at Retire Early and Often on YouTube. But we talk a lot about those things, about just kind of maximizing your time, your energy, your efforts right now to just, this isn't about making your life miserable so someday you can have a nice life. It's about making sure that you're doing the right things now so that you can always have a great life. Mm-hmm. And I know that's part of Go Abundance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, last question I have for you then. If you were to be able to take all the knowledge you currently have and go and start over, you're 20 years old, what would you change or do differently?
Oh, gosh. I thought about that because I listened to your podcast. I forgot that was coming, though. But, if I look back, there's no point at which I was, living in Hawaii or San Diego and, surfing. And, there's no, 1 or 2 year period where I would go. I would trade that for, doing real estate earlier. But if there would have been a way to, maybe house hack just a little bit earlier than I did, hold some of those properties a little bit longer, it could have just been, it could have made my life journey just a little bit easier, I would say. Certainly, no matter what stage of life you're at, there's somebody who can help you that's right around you. Don't listen to the negative people who are just trying to keep you in your little shell. Learn from somebody who's just the next level or 2 up from you, and just do it. Just do it. Put down the Game Boy, or quit watching, Dancing with the Stars, or whatever it is, and go do something. Experience is the best teacher, and networking is the best coach.
So good. Cool. Well, you already said it, but I wanted to direct people to your YouTube channel, Retire Early and Often. I subscribe to it, and every once in a while, I'll see a video pop up. Actually, you're probably doing 1 a week now.
It's about once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll see it pop up, and I love your format. It's cool. You got you in the corner, and then, you've always got a graphic or something going on, and you're talking about everything, and just great perspective. So go check out Doug's YouTube channel. And yeah, thanks for coming on and spending 45 minutes telling a little bit of your story. And
my pleasure, man.
It's been fun. Let's go.
Great
grab
time.
some food.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Hey, if you listen to the end of this podcast I had with Jordy Clark and his great podcast channel, I'll link to it down below. But thank you for joining us for that. And remember, subscribe, like, share. Appreciate if you let other people know about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to help you to do. Hope to see you again soon on another episode of Retire Early and Often. Thank you.